Let's turn in our Bibles now to the 20th chapter of the book of Revelation. John saw, I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. We've mentioned that this bottomless pit in the Greek is abuso, which literally means shaft. And it would seem from the scriptures that this is the place where angelic kind of beings are incarcerated. We read that the beast, the Antichrist, will come out of the abuso, chapter 17 of the book of Revelation. When Jesus was at Gadara and met by the demon-possessed man, the demons begged Jesus that he would not send them to the abuso before their time. It is interesting that Satan will be bound and placed into the abuso, the angels coming down from heaven, having the key to the abuso, or the bottomless pit, a great chain in his hand. Back in the 9th chapter of the book of Revelation, there was another angel, a star it was called, fall from heaven, having this key to the abuso. When he opened it, the earth was invaded by demonic hordes that created great havoc upon the earth. Demons were turned loose out of the abuso back in chapter 9. And so Satan now, and so he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he cast him into the abuso and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. So now this place of demonic spirits houses Satan. It's interesting that God has allowed Satan the freedom. Someone has asked if God is going to ultimately bind him and put him in the abuso, why didn't he do it a long time ago and save us all of the misery and suffering that he has brought upon the earth? And if he is once chained and shut up in the abuso, then why will God allow him to be released again? Interesting is the fact that Satan does serve a divine purpose. God allows him the freedom in order that he might serve God's divine purpose. It's so easy for us to say, I love you, Lord, with all my heart. Lord, you are first. Lord, I love you more than anyone or anything else. Those words are easy to say. But oftentimes they are said, but not with real sincerity. When we avow our love for God, oftentimes God allows us to be put to the test, to the extent of how much we really do love him. Satan is God's instrument, often in testing the love that we have for God. We see a classic example of that in the story of Job, where when the sons of God were presenting themselves to God and Satan came along with them, and God questioned him where he had been, and he said, going to and fro throughout the earth, up and down. God said, have you considered my servant Job? He's a good man. He loves good, hates evil. Satan said, yes, but you've put a hedge around him. You won't let me get to him. And you have blessed him and prospered him. Anyone would serve you if you prospered them like you have Job. He has no needs, no wants. You've so blessed him. Take away the hedge. Let me at him. I can make him curse you. And so God allowed Satan to strip Job of his possessions. God put the restriction on him, leave his life alone. Satan's philosophy concerning Job that he had developed was that Job was a mercenary. He was only serving God for the profits, for the perks that God gave him. Take away the perks, he won't serve you. It is true that God gives to his children many wonderful perks. Am I serving him just for the perks, just for the blessings, just for the benefits? Or am I serving him because I really love him with all my heart? And God allows it to be put to the test. Job was put to the test. And having been stripped of everything, his family, his wealth, his fortune, Job lay on the ground. He said, I came into the world naked. Naked I will go out. The Lord is given. The Lord is taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And in all of these things, Job did not curse God nor charge God foolishly. But Satan was used as an instrument of God to put Job to the test, and often is used as an instrument of God to put us to the test. Let us say that I say to my son, son, and that was when they were growing up. I can't say anything to them now. I say sir now, but son, I'm going down to purchase a desk. I'll need help to get it upstairs into my office. I want you to stay here in the yard till I get back, because I have a lot to do today. And as soon as I get back, I want you to help me put the desk up in my office. So don't leave the yard. And if I would take then a great chain and go out in the backyard and chain him to the tree, and then head for the office supply and get the desk. When I got home, there he is, chained in the backyard. I go back and I unchain him. And I say, I have such a wonderful son. He is so obedient. He stayed in the backyard the whole while I was gone. I'm so proud of that boy. My neighbor might be saying, you should have heard him screaming and the things he called you while you were gone. But if on the other hand, I say, son, I'm going down to get a desk. I want you to stay in the yard while I'm gone. Don't leave. I want you here when I get back. And as I take off, my neighbor's out watering his lawn, and I say, Mr. Jones, would you mind just sort of keeping an eye on my son, Jeff? I'm sort of curious as what happens when Dad's not around. I told him to stay in the yard, and I'm just curious when I'm not around just what happens. And so I go down and get the desk, and as I get home, I stop by Mr. Jones and say, well, how did it go? And he says, oh, Mr. Smith, you've got a fine son. You don't have to worry about him. He stayed in the yard the whole while you were gone. But not only that. That little kid up the street, little Jimmy, he came over and he said, come on, let's go over to the school and shoot some baskets. And your son said, no, I can't go. I've got to stay in the yard. Dad wants me to stay here. He wants me here when I get back. Oh, come on, let's go. You can get back here before your dad does. He'll never know you're gone. Come on, let's go. Your son said, no, Dad told me to stay here, and I'm going to stay here till he gets back. Ah, come on, you just chicken. And your son popped him in the nose. The kid went home with a bloody nose. Mr. Smith, you've got a fine son. And I could then be justly proud that my son obeyed me, though the opportunity and the freedom to do otherwise was there. Still, he kept obedient. And so with God, he leaves us free. And he even has little Jimmy, the devil, that comes along and tries to tempt us towards disobedience. And when I remain true to God in spite of the temptations, then, as Paul said, God has created us for the praise of the glory of his grace. That is, he receives pleasure, glory in my obedience to him, especially in light of the fact that the opportunity to do otherwise was there. Not only the opportunity, but Satan was there trying to exploit the opportunities. But I've remained true, and God says, oh, I've got a fine son. And so God said concerning Job. So that is why God has allowed Satan the freedom, in order that we might be tested to prove our love and our commitment to the Lord, the genuineness of that love and that commitment. In a moment, we will look at why God allows him freedom again after his being bound for 1,000 years in the abuso. Now in verse 4, it is important to note that John is observing not one, but two companies. Those who hold to a post-tribulation view often use this verse as one of the great proof texts of the post-tribulation position. Because John said, I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. So, because John saw this company, they don't make the correct distinction here. They lump it all as one, where John is actually talking about two companies that he sees in heaven. Notice, I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. Who are they? These people on their thrones are the church. Back in chapter 3, verse 21, to him that overcometh, I will grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and I'm set down with my Father in his throne. Paul, writing to the Corinthians, said, "Know ye not that we shall judge angels? How much more the things that pertain to this life?" The psalmist wrote, "Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of God be in their mouth, and the two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains, their nobles with fetters of iron, and to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise ye the Lord." Daniel, speaking of the Antichrist, said, "I beheld in the same horn the Antichrist made war with the saints, prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom." Jesus said to his disciples, "Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." So the first group that John observes is the church, the overcomers. Seated on their thrones, judgment is given unto them. But notice he sees a second group. Notice he says, "And I saw the souls of those that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus." He saw the second group, which were the martyred saints who had come up out of the great tribulation, had not worshiped the beast or taken his mark. Back in chapter 6, verse 9, "And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" Chapter 7, verse 13. One of the elders, when John saw this great multitude in heaven, no man can number, singing of salvation through Jesus, the elder said to me, "Who are these that are arrayed in these white robes, and where did they come from?" And John said, "Sir, you know." And he said to me, "These are they which came out of the great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore they are before the throne of God. They serve him day and night in his temple, and he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them." So there is the second group, those that are martyred during the tribulation period by their refusal to take the mark of the beast or to worship him or his image. So John is actually seeing not one but two companies, separate companies. The church sits with Jesus on his throne. These martyred saints from the tribulation stand before the throne of God. They are in his holy temple, we are told in chapter 7, worshiping him day and night continually. So John tells us that they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Now that's both companies. Jesus Christ is going to return to the earth. We will be returning with him. Paul said, "And when Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall we also appear with him in glory." He's returning to the earth to claim the earth as God's. He redeemed the world through his death upon the cross. He paid the price to redeem the world. He's coming back to claim that which he purchased on the cross. We will come back with him, and he will reign over the earth for 1,000 years, during which time in the first part of the chapter, Satan will be bound. He will be in the abuso, and we will not have to be dealing with him during this 1,000-year reign of Christ. The earth will be restored to the Edenic glory, as it was before the flood, as it was in the Garden of Eden. The earth, the whole earth, will be a paradise. There will probably be an equalizing of the climates. There will be no more hurricanes. There will probably not be any polar ice caps. We do know that under the polar ice caps, there are forests, or were there at one time forests under the ice caps. The coal deposits tell us that. We do know that in the frozen Arctic Circle in Siberia, in that icy tundra, they have found the remains of mammoths that were frozen in place. When they were cut open, the digestive tracts had parts of tropical vegetation. So we know that at one time the climate of the earth was vastly different than it is today. That there didn't exist the polar ice caps, but there were tropical animals roaming around the area of the North Pole. Without the polar ice caps, of course, the amount of the land surface would be covered more with water. There would be a difference between the present percentage of sea and land. But without the polar ice caps, you would not be getting these tremendous radical changes of climate. There would be much more sun. The earth, of course, presently is tilted at 23 1/3 degrees, which gives us our seasons. But perhaps God will readjust, because the Bible says the earth is going to wobble like a drunken man and will be moved out of its place. Perhaps the Lord will correct, and we will not be in a 23 1/3 degree angle on our axis in relationship to the sun, but directly perpendicular, which would bring not the seasons, but an equal kind of daylight and nighttime. And the whole earth could be like Hawaii. So you that have Hawaii scoped out, forget it. It's mine. But you won't need to be jealous, because the whole earth will be like that. There will be a renewed longevity of life. There will be, of course, greater moisture in the atmosphere because of the evaporation of the oceans, with more water and not the storms and so forth. There will be a greater evaporation. More moisture will be carried in the atmosphere, which will give us more filters from the ultraviolet rays and all. And the earth will be a beautiful place. The whole earth will be filled with His glory. And righteousness will cover the earth as the waters cover the seas. We will be living with Christ and reigning with Christ over the earth. Now, we've been reading about the great judgment that is going to come upon the earth. We've been looking at the events. We have seen how the earth's population has been decimated. And there are scriptures that do indicate that only 1 out of 10 people will survive the Great Tribulation period. Not very many. 1 out of 10. But if the earth's population is presently somewhere around the 5 billion mark, that would still leave you 500 million people upon the earth, and that's a pretty healthy number. When Jesus returns to establish his kingdom, the first order of business will be to gather the nations together for judgment, to determine which of those who survive the Great Tribulation will be allowed the privilege to continue living into the kingdom age. Now, if a person has taken the mark of the beast, he immediately will be eliminated. He'll not be allowed to enter into the kingdom age. If they have been a part of his program, they'll not be allowed to enter the kingdom age. It is at that time that the Lord will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And to those on his right hand, he'll say, "Come, ye blessed of the Father, inherit the kingdom that was prepared from the foundations of the world." But to those on his left, he'll say, "Depart from me, ye workers of iniquity, into everlasting darkness that was prepared for Satan and his angels." Jesus will then begin the 1,000-year reign, and we will be reigning with him as kings and priests, or a kingdom of priests over the earth. We are told that annually we'll be going to Jerusalem to meet with Jesus. Great convocation annually as the church goes to Jerusalem to meet with the Lord. Now, let us suppose that there are, say, 200 million people that passed the test when Jesus returns and are allowed to live into the kingdom age. There is a passage in Daniel chapter 12 where the angel is talking about the end of all, of the Gentile reign.